Scoodly doodly doo, it's time for another Welch review. Scoodly doodly doo doo.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Welch Review. Today we are talking about Predator 2, starring our main man, Danny Glover. I love Danny Glover, man. That guy can be in anything and I'll watch it. Hands down, one of my favorite actors. So speaking of Mr. Glover, he was in Lethal Weapon 1 through 4. The great Harrison Ford film Witness. I'm going to have to do a review of that. I love Witness. 2012, where he played the president, which was dope. You also have Gary Busey as Peter Keyes. And he was in the fabulous Keanu Reeves film Point Break with the irreplaceable Patrick Swayze. That's another great one. We're going to do something with that too. Point Break and Witness. Those, look out for those. He's also in DC Cab and Under Siege. You have Bill Paxton as Jerry Lambert, and Bill Paxton was in Mean Dreams, Aliens, and The Terminator. You have Ruben Blades as Danny Archuleta, and he was in Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Safe House, and The Counselor. You have Kevin Peter Hall returning as the Predator. He was also in Without Warning, The Predator, and Harry and the Hendersons. You have Maria Conchita Alonso as Liana Cantwell. She was in The Running Man, Spread, and Extreme Prejudice. You have Robert Davey as Captain Philip Heineman, who is in Die Hard, License to Kill, in The Goonies. You have Adam Baldwin as Garber, who is in My Bodyguard, Serenity, and the TV series Firefly. And it was written by Jim and John Thomas, who wrote the original Predator film, Executive Decision, and Wild Wild West. And it was directed by Stephen Hopkins, who directed Race, Lost in Space, and A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Child. So that is like one of the most stacked casts I think I've seen in a while. And seeing them all together, they just play so well off each other. And we're gonna get ourselves back into that. But first, let's talk about the synopsis of this film. So, Predator 2 trades the jungles of South America for the streets of Los Angeles, right? You got gang wars, you got cops and robbers, you got trash, you got just everyday people walking around, right? They're really embodying like 90s Los Angeles, like when the riots were going on and how crazy media coverage was. And aside from all that stuff going on, you know what they throw in? An intergalactic alien predator that hunts people for trophies is thrown in, right? Just for good measure. If everything else wasn't enough, let's give them a serial killer-esque alien to spice things up. And that's exactly what this film does. So, we got Danny Glover, who is kind of like a no-nonsense, plays by his own rules detective, who Mike Harrigan, who's in the mix, right? He's trying to crack down on this drug-dealing gang, and he's a loose cannon cop, right? So he doesn't exactly listen to his captain. He gets assigned a new partner, doesn't really want to work with his partner because, like, I work alone, right? Because he's a lone wolf. And they're like, no, you need this. This is going to help you and get him ready. We need more people ready on the force. And he's like, it'll only hold me down, Captain, right? Like all those cool 90s cop tropes, but, you know, delivered with a sonder, is that the right word? But it's like a sizzle when you look at him. You feel the intensity coming off of his eyes that only Danny Glover can provide. So anyway, as he's navigating this case and trying to find, you know, this gang and bring them to justice, enter a predator who arrives in Los Angeles, and the predator does what they do best. They start hunting people and killing them, right? And, you know, it turns out the Predator's also interested in these gang members and starts killing them. So eventually the Predator and Danny Glover, they cross paths. And then Danny Glover starts becoming like, yo, who is this guy who killed the guy I'm going after? And then he starts chasing after that. And then there's a couple other like big bumps in the road. It's a little bit of heartbreak mixed in there. And I won't give away two things. If you know Bill Paxton, you know that he's the only person to be killed by the Terminator, the aliens, and whatever the creature of this movie is. So I'm sure you can guess what happens to him. And as he's on this path following the Predator, Danny Glover comes into contact with Gary Busey, who plays Peter Keyes. And Peter Keyes is, we'll touch back on the future of him, but Peter Keyes is basically a CIA scientist who, they know that the Predator is there. They got the information from Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in the first movie, Dutch, and they've been trying to keep like a catalog of appearances and trying to pinpoint where this thing is to eventually try and capture it to study or kill it to study. And so now Danny Glover's mixed up with that whole conspiracy thing, but then even that, their sting operation on the Predator goes south, and more bodies lay on the floor, and then ultimately in classic Predator film showdown ends up with a mano-a-mano with the Predator and the main main hero of the film. Now, I mentioned we'd go back to Peter Keyes. Peter Keyes, turns out, does have a son who's actually played by Gary Busey's actual son, Jake Busey, in the film The Predator that came out, I want to say in like 2019 or 2018, something to that effect. The most recent one before Prey. So the character of Keyes lives on in his son. So it'll be interesting to see if Jake Busey plays that character of Junior Keyes in any other future installments, which I thought was pretty dope. So there you go. It's a synopsis. I encourage you. This movie got a lot of flack, right? It wasn't as beloved as the first Predator, and I get it. Arnold and Danny, two different type of actors. But I think what's important is like the city of Los Angeles in this movie is very much its own character. Where I've never been to Los Angeles, but I've been to New York. In New York, in any movie that's filmed in New York City itself is its own character. There's an unpredictability, a violent nature, all mixed into these giant cities that are used as backdrops for the film. And I think the concrete jungle provides a very interesting setting for a movie such as Predator, right? It's a whole bunch of new avenues, literally and figuratively, for which this alien hunter can use for its unique set of skills in trapping and hunting people down. And it provides like a different area versus like where Dutch and his group of like army rangers have different tactics than police detectives and police officers and gang members and how they would deal with fighting an intergalactic being. So I just thought it was a very unique idea, and I think it was going to be hard to follow up the original Predator itself, but I think Jim and John Thomas did a great job just like taking a similar concept but putting it in a new setting. And I think this one really stands out among like the Predator universe of films. This one I think is definitely a hidden gem that deserves more credit than it got. And I think the cast that they assembled for this did a really great job. I think it'd be cool perhaps if there was a little bit more diving into like just focusing on the Predator hunting more. I think that would have been really cool. I know now that Prey kind of took off and that it kind of revigorated this franchise a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see where they place the Predator next. But I think it'd be really cool if they revisited a cityscape again like this. And I can't really say enough about good things about this film. It's one I really enjoy watching. I watch it at least once, not once, I watch it like at least 3 times a year. And if I see it on TV, I'll put it on. It's a great movie. Don't sleep on it. Much like Jaws 2, right? The original was so good, and people are like, I don't know about the sequel. But it's like, no, man. Predator 2, Jaws 2, Godfather. Well, everyone loves Godfather 2, but Godfather 2, Predator 2, Jaws 2, I think are all within that same frame of like, man, here's a time when sequels are just as good or if just like close enough to the original where it's like, yeah, this is fantastic and worth your time. So if you haven't seen Predator 2, you want to see Danny Glover kick some serious butt, you want to see Bill Paxton and Gary Busey in the same movie, this is a movie for you. It's worth picking up, it's worth checking out, and if you're big into the Predator and alien lore, it's a film that can't be missed. And it's just a fun time. It's just a really fun time. And I think that's sometimes what gets overlooked with sequels to big blockbusters is sometimes they're not looked at as kindly. And sometimes they should be. Well, this has been the Welch Review. I'm interested in your thoughts. If you have any on Predator 2, please leave some in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions on films you'd like to see reviewed, please also let me know in the comments. But either way, next time, we'll probably continue talking about the Predatorverse with Alien versus Predator Requiem. And then I think we might be moving on to Cocaine Bear. Those are what I'm thinking is coming next. But either way, until the next episode, stay gold.